Good afternoon. Today I'm here to present on my topic, Journey Towards Uniting Metastores. My name is Ananya Ghosh, and I'm a data engineering consultant with the Enterprise Data Office at Nationwide Insurance. And I'm currently serving as the business application owner for data integration and curation platforms. Today, I'm going to walk you through Nationwide's journey towards adopting Unity Catalog as a key component of its Lakehouse architecture. These are some of the topics that I wish to cover in today's session. If you have any question afterwards, feel free to stop by and ask them. So a brief background about Nationwide, for those who are not already aware. We are a mutual insurance and financial services company. Our roots extend back to 1926, when we began as a small regional mutual insurance provider, helping farmers get the best for their auto insurance. And over the years, we have grown and expanded our products and services while staying true to our mission. We exist to protect people, businesses, and futures with extraordinary care. We are proud to continue to rank with the best. Based on the number of retirement plans, we are #1 in the country. We are also the #1 writer of pet insurance, farms and ranches, as well as corporate-owned life insurance. Overall, Nationwide is the 8th largest personal auto and home insurer in the country. Also at Nationwide, we have a culture where you could be at your best self. We believe that our differences is what makes us better. Today, Nationwide is a Fortune 100 company and one of America's most diversified insurance and financial services organizations. So now let's delve into our overall high-level core data architecture. For those who are unaware, in the past 8 to 10 years, Nationwide has embarked on a journey towards platform modernization to provide greater value to its members, customers, policyholders. What you see here is probably a 30,000 feet high view of our core Lakehouse architecture, and it focuses primarily on the key actors and their interactions. This is a simplified view of the core phases or data hops that most of our data has to pass through. Our core Lakehouse pattern represents a consistent way to capture hundreds of heterogeneous data sources, curate or transform them in order to present them for consumption by our end customers from various product lines for business intelligence or advanced analytics kind of use cases, like operational reporting, dashboarding, self-service BI, specific product level aggregates and cubes, advanced analytics, discovery, model training, etc. The list goes on. As you see at the bottom of this diagram, we consider governance as a key wrapper around all of these areas. I'm sure everyone is familiar with the concepts of data lake, data marts, and data warehouses. At Nationwide, our Lakehouse architecture is not just about integrating data lake or a mart or a warehouse, but it's about connecting these analytical data sources into a coherent whole to make the data repository that you see on the top right side, make that repository owned, defined, protected, interoperable, discoverable, and trusted. So Nationwide has selected Databricks as its core Lakehouse platform, and features like Unity Catalog, SQL Serverless, etc. just help enhance its data governance and utilization. So now I'm going to talk about our journey towards implementing or adopting Unity Catalog at Nationwide. On this slide, I'm going to talk briefly about the top 5 challenges that we had faced prior to implementing Unity Catalog, and we are still in that journey towards resolving all of these. So the first one, access to governed data lakes from our standard BI platforms and tools. So at Nationwide, our cloud statement of direction believes that acceleration towards cloud should be done in a secured and protected manner. And this has created several security level restrictions in terms of how should our end consumers access the underlying files stored in our GDLs, our governed data lakes. So resolving that, we are hopeful that through Unity Catalog's permission model, we will be able to resolve this issue pretty seamlessly just through SQL grants. Number 2 is absence of a secured method to share data. As I mentioned previously on the architecture slide, that one of the goals of enterprise data strategy is to enable business through trusted data. There are various instances where external third-party data is required to enhance our understanding of our customers' needs or make business decisions. However, third-party data has been underutilized or distributed inconsistently, often in silos, creating data silos, which has led to duplication of metadata, data, and so on and so forth. There is also a need from our product teams to access some of these common data using varying multiple different types of access permissions. So we are hopeful that Unity Catalog's delta sharing will be able to resolve the problem. I'll talk about it on one of my future slides. Number 3 is data sprawl that has occurred due to localization of management of metadata, data, identities, that has resulted in creation of duplicate, sometimes ungoverned assets. And applying or building out an automation to monitor, to alert the central account team has been pretty complex at times. So that's something we really want to see if Unity Catalog can help address that through their audit logs and all of the Lakehouse monitoring that the product team was talking about today during the keynote. Number 4 would be lineage. So as part of our enterprise standard reference architecture, discoverability and data lineage are fundamental pieces to manage and maintain data assets. Without Unity Catalog, it was becoming very hard and complex to track an end-to-end data pipeline, which we were building out within Databricks. So we are hopeful again that Unity Catalog will help us resolve that at an enterprise level, not just limited to the Databricks platform. And then finally, ABAC, attribute-based fine-grained access control. This is one of our key security requirements, where we have a requirement from our end users to be able to apply fine-grained access control at the levels of users, groups, service principals, also row or column-based, based on fields like date, geographic location, data classification, and things like that. Also implementing effective data masking for PII data, which business users may not require all the time to be authentic, has been a little complex as well. So these are the top 5 challenges which we are pretty certain we'll be able to overcome through Unity Catalog. Now, this is, again, a nationwide view of the before and after implementation of Unity Catalog. I'm sure you've seen similar diagrams from Databricks as well, but I just wanted to show, from a nationwide standpoint, the image on the top was when we when we migrated from our single tenant legacy to an enterprise version 2 architecture. This is how it looked like, where, so just for reference, BSAs mean business solution areas at Nationwide. These are the technology teams who are assisting business teams to meet their end decisions and goals. So within each BSA, we can have dev, test, production, whatever, multiple workspaces, and then multiple workspaces for different types of product lines as well. So far, prior to Unity Catalog, we always had the metadata, access controls, identities kind of localized within each workspace, governed, managed by the local teams, with little or almost no visibility at an account level. So the diagram at the bottom is kind of what we show with Unity Catalog. We have been able to pull up all of those footprints, all of the services up at the account level, and able to federate them down to the workspaces only as needed. And at Nationwide, we always follow the least privilege access method. Okay, so this is one of my favorite slides, and I've been thinking what's the best way to present this. This is our implementation approach. Not that we had conceived all of this on day one, but as we started rolling out, testing out the features, the way I can group our implementation, our journey so far, can be done into 4 major groups. You see at the top level, that's the proof of concept phase, which was done in our enterprise data offices sandbox regions. We had 2 sandbox regions in 2 different Metastores, or 2 different AWS regions. That actually helped us test Delta Share as well. The second phase was the foundational phase, which we conducted with one of our product lines or business lines who we had onboarded just like 6 months before the rollout. And they were sort of like a greenfield environment for us. They probably had a couple of clusters and maybe 4 or 5 databases with 10 tables. So it was easy to test out the UC features from a real life business area. The third phase that you see is the complex phase, where we began testing with one of our the largest consumer or the largest product line at Nationwide. They helped us identify all the different complex data integration, identity hierarchies, Hive migration complexities that we could not think of in our proof of concept or the foundational phase. And then the big bang rollout, which we are currently ongoing right now, where we have, based on all of our lessons learned, we are rolling it out across all of our remaining product lines who are currently on Databricks, as well as onboarding new product lines as well. And we are enabling them with Unity Catalog from day one, the new business areas. So while we are thinking of those 4 horizontal phases, there were 3 major groups or 3 major type of questions that we're trying to address in each phase and maturing those processes or deliverables. The first group, the boxes with red, primarily comprise of our WBS structure or the work breakdown structure, which answers the what. What do we need to do in order to implement Unity Catalog across our workspaces? We began with what Databricks has provided us, the basic core steps. And as we tested those steps in our POC, in our sandbox regions, and also with marketing team, which was our first business team, we began maturing the steps. With our complex team, we added additional UC capabilities like testing out of delta sharing, testing out gathering requirements for audit, monitoring discoverability, lineage, etc. We started including those steps as well as part of our WBS. Today, we have a pretty matured and solid work breakdown structure that we are using not only to onboard existing customers, existing business users, but also quickly enable our new customers as well on Databricks and enable them with Unity Catalog from day one. The second group of green boxes is the where. As I kind of discussed before, we strategized the way we would roll out across workspaces. We didn't want to do a big bang on day one because we had no experience with Unity Catalog. We didn't even know if it would work. So as I said, we began with 2 sandbox regions in our enterprise data offices, dev workspaces. We moved to a small, newly onboarded team, which was pretty greenfield, they were open. And the timing worked out fine because they were willing to test out Unity Catalog and their various data integration scenarios as well. And the third group was, we picked the largest product line primarily to understand nuances around data access capture, which we could not reproduce in our sandbox regions at all. The volume of data, things like that. And then currently what you see on the star, the yellow star kind of shows we are kind of wrapping up with this large product line and moving over to onboarding like 6 or 7 different product lines at the same time with a big bang approach. The third group of boxes answering how, we created what we are popularly calling as the Unity Catalog user runbook, which comprises of all our standards, best practices, naming conventions, guardrails, limitations, from a Unity Catalog standpoint that the user, the end user, whether they are workspace admins or data admins or just regular users need to be aware of and follow from a nationwide standpoint. As I mentioned, we have several security considerations and guidelines at Nationwide, so we have to be very sure about, how should somebody create an external table? How should we create schemas, prevent data sprawls from happening? How do I protect PII data, data masking? So you have to consider all of those considerations within this user guide. And then as we are moving on with our journey of the Big Bang kind of rollout, we had also identified some of our automation opportunities. How could we quickly enable our end users in terms of creation of their data assets? How do we quickly help our larger product lines migrate their existing data assets from Hive, Metastore to the newly created Unity Catalog schemas? So we've been working a lot around identifying the correct scope for automation and also implementing them as we speak, testing them out with our largest team. And then we have recently began designing and capturing the requirements for HADR as well. So this is my second favorite slide because it kind of summarizes our, you can think of an entity relationship diagram on the left-hand side for all the Unity Catalog securables. And then on the right-hand side, you have, that's our structure at Nationwide, the way we've defined the identity hierarchy to work out. And I've tried to color code the groups or the roles to the securables they own. So at the very top level, we have account admin, which is an existing role. It's nothing new for Nationwide, but it's an existing one. But the way we're defining this role is this is the highest possible role on the identity structure. And they are responsible for creating, organizing, maintaining Databricks account and the Metastores. We have a couple of Metastores across multiple AWS regions. Right below the account admin would be the Metastore admin group. And both of these groups are primarily owned by our single central enterprise data office team, which is also the platform team that owns the product at Nationwide. So they are the ones we have identified. We want to keep these two groups to a very small limit. So we want to limit the number of account admins or Metastore admins, primarily because of the power they possess. So Metastore admins would be responsible for creating, managing, maintaining, and even delegating as needed Unity Catalog objects, which you see in the blue boxes. So which includes catalog schemas, all the Delta share objects, and the external storage, the external table-related objects. We would delegate some of these permissions to the data admins at the business level. So what you see down below as workspace 1, 2, or 3, all the way through N. There at the very topmost level, I'm not sure if you're able to read it clearly, those are the data admins. And data admins are business level. They are more at the BSA level. BSA, as I mentioned before, business solution areas that support the IT teams which support our product lines. So Metastore admins could delegate some of their powers and privileges to the data admins as required. Data admins will be primarily responsible for managing the assets under a schema at this point in time. They might get ownership access to some of the Delta share objects as well, depending on how they want to interact with their business end users. Anything below the yellow dotted line, treat them as regular users from a Unity Catalog standpoint. So even if you're a workspace admin who is responsible for managing the workspace features, managing compute, they would still require access, access to be granted in order to read a table or a catalog schema table, etc. And then below the workspace admins would be the regular users, service principals. We have multiple types of user groups depending on the type of accesses we want. We've tried to standardize those as far as possible and keep them generic across most of our product lines. There are exceptions, of course. Service principals, as most folks are aware, will be used for running jobs, API calls, and things like that. Within the brackets, I've kind of tried to explain the high-level roles and then how many folks we envision would be part of each of these groups. Our primary focus from a sprawl standpoint, from a governance standpoint, would be the admin groups, primarily account, Metastore, and data admins. That's what we're focusing on from an alerting, monitoring governance standpoint. I particularly wanted to call out Delta Share because we have tested this feature, particularly the scenario 3 that I have mentioned here on the right-hand side. This is going to be a game changer for Nationwide at least. So far, as I mentioned under my challenges, we've had business requirements where third-party data or external data has been grossly underutilized. We've been losing. We could potentially even lose money if you're not able to consume the data effectively and also share it with product lines based on their permissions that they require. And Delta sharing has been phenomenal. We already have one of the integration patterns, the third one that I mentioned, already in production. We have tested all 4 scenarios. So from an architecture standpoint, we have pretty much used Delta Share architecture out of the box, where the Delta Share server has been deployed at the Unity Catalog Metastore level. And we've tested sharing between different workspaces on different regions. As I mentioned, we have 2 different regions at Nationwide. We've also tested, this is also a very popular use case, number 2, where we have a bunch of our business users who are not on Databricks, but they would want to consume Delta tables, whether it's in the raw form or standardized or curated. So that has been tested, Power BI being one of the most popular use cases, and then external vendors sharing from and then sharing with. So the last couple of slides is mostly around wrapping up. Just want to briefly highlight where we stand as of today. Our target for the rest of this year would be to onboard, and these are conservative numbers. I hope you understand from a Nationwide standpoint. So we do intend to onboard 1,800 plus users, service principals, groups by the end of this year, enable 40 plus, and it's growing number of workspaces, including 50 plus catalogs, close to 1,000 databases, most likely by the end of this year. We've also, as I've mentioned before, we've created the standardized user guide, the user runbook, standardized work breakdown structure that will help us onboard users more effectively. These are some of our upcoming milestones, some of the key upcoming milestones that, apart from just enabling UC, we want to make sure that we design and develop a very effective HADR disaster recovery framework for backing up the Metastores, metadata, as well as the permissions, code, etc. Observability, monitoring, alerting is also a very important feature. We are waiting on some of the features that were discussed today during Mate and Ali's presentation in the morning. And then automating the data lineage consumption at an enterprise level. That's also something we are looking forward to. And then finally, this was announced yesterday, we are also the Data Team Democratization Award winner yesterday. So that's all. This is, I wish I could gather more photographs. This is just our core team yesterday. Some of the brightest brains working on Unity Catalog rollout at Nationwide. Thank you.